Crooked man's waiting on you.
That's interesting.
I am here with the cast and creators of Hellboy, The Crooked Man. I'm excited to speak with you guys, but before we start, could we get you guys to introduce yourselves to our audience for Screen Rant? We'll start with you, Jack.
Sure. I'm Jack Kessie playing Hellboy.
I'm Jefferson White. I play Tom Farrell.
I'm Adeline Rudolph. I play Bobby Joe Song.
Brian Taylor, director.
Mike Mignola, creator of Hellboy.
Brian, I'm going to start with you. You've adapted other comics like Happy, Jonah Hex, and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. What lessons did you learn that you were able to apply to Hellboy, The Crooked Man?
Learned a lot of things not to do on some of those films. But this was a unique one because a lot of times with comic book movies or things like that, filmmakers and studios feel it's their mission to reinvent. We have to fix it.
Sure.
We want to do our version and we want to expand it and this and that. This was not the mission on this film at all. On this one, it was my feeling about it was really clear. Is we're working with one of the most beloved and iconic singular comic books ever, and our job is to keep it simple, and we're really adapting this piece of comic book literature as sort of with as much love, attention to detail, and authenticity as we can.
Mike, you're an absolute legend, so I want to thank you for being here. But how does this iteration of Hellboy stand out from others that we've seen in the past?
Well, it is the most faithful. This is the only one where I was actually co-writing the screenplay. So we did the comic. We created the Bobby Joe character. But for the most part, it was one story. And as opposed to what a lot of people do, especially when you've got all the materials, I want to combine this with this and this and this and this. We've had that, and we've had very loose adaptations, which are cool.
Right.
If Del Toro's gonna make a movie, you let Del Toro make a Del Toro movie.
Let him cook.
But this one is my favorite Hellboy story, and I didn't want it a loose adaptation.
Sure.
I wanted something that felt like what I loved about the comic.
Which I think fans are just going to eat up. Those Hellboy fans are going to eat that up. Now, Jack, how do you approach Hellboy in bringing a new perspective to the character for the big screen?
So, not to parrot Brian Taylor, but so much of the groundwork was done for us, and we're directly going from the comic book. So much of the crew have done so much of the work as far as set, as far as creating this prosthetic.
Sure.
And we spoke about it a little earlier, where they made it so much that it wasn't a face or a rubber face. I was able to actually, act, and you can actually see my personality. As far as I know, I haven't seen it yet, but so much of the work has been done. They cast it right. I hope.
They did.
And
you guys are great.
And some nuances here and there when you can. You bring your own personality to it and your own choices, but for the most part, like the man himself said it, I'm just a faithful Hellboy.
Now, Jefferson, Adeline, you guys are stepping into the world of Hellboy. What surprised you the most about stepping into the world, and what can you tease about your characters?
I think something that's really fun about this process particularly is it's this very beloved, iconic character, but making the movie also really felt like making an indie movie in the woods. This is it's Southern Gothic, it's horror, it's this intimate little story. So all of the joy of indie filmmaking was also present, all the problem solving, the sort of figuring it out together. The process of it also felt very familial. It didn't feel like this massive, huge IP. It felt very personal, and that was a real joy coming into a superhero movie to feel like, wait a second, it feels like we're making a horror movie with our friends in the woods.
Right.
That was a huge gift. And then also just, how immersive the world felt. In the book, there are these incredible villains. There's the Crooked Man, there's Effie Kolb, these amazing, vivid characters, but also the atmosphere itself is a villain, these woods, this church, these graveyards. So it was a very immersive filmmaking experience. It was sort of the opposite of a green screen on a sound stage in LA.
That's awesome.
It was very visceral. It was very it felt like authentic and immersive in the best possible way.
And
all of that. And the only thing I'll add is it was a very practical set. So that was why it was surprising and a pleasant surprise. So not a lot of VFX. We tried to keep it real, which was
that's
cool.
amazing. Now,
And it was cold. Really cold.
what can you guys tease about your characters in particular, Jefferson and Adeline?
So I play a guy named Tom Farrell who, at a young age, made a really bad deal and sort of sold his soul to the devil in exchange for a lucky bone that he was told at a young age.
Why do people do that?
He fell in love. He was misled by Effie Kolb, this kind of timeless evil witch. So Tom Farrell sort of, out of misguided love at a young age, sold his soul to the devil. And now he's lived a life. It's, 20-some years later, and he's coming back home. Having tried to escape that past, he's coming back home to try to rectify it, to sort of talk to the devil again.
Sure.
And see if he can trade back this lucky bone for his soul. And he very happily stumbles into these two along the way, into Hellboy and Bobby Joe.
And tell us a little bit about
And
Bobby Joe.
So Bobby Joe is a rookie BPRD agent. She works closely with Hellboy. It feels like they just started working together, and then something goes awry, and they end up going on this big journey, run into Tom Farrell and all the other amazing characters. She's young, she's curious, she's maybe a little bit in over her head. But yeah.
Brian, this film looks like it's a very different kind of beast from the previous films. How deliberate was that approach in production?
Very deliberate. I mean, this is a folk horror movie. It's not a space opera. And actually, Jeff was saying it felt like an indie film. It was an indie film. And I actually think that's so appropriate to the character, because one thing that kind of amazes me about this guy, and how I think he's very singular in the comic book world, is who else can you name?
Right.
Who has given us an entire comic book universe. It's a household name, part of the zeitgeist, and he's not affiliated with any of the majors. This is all coming from one guy's brain. He's an indie. So a Hellboy movie should feel like an indie movie. It's
Absolutely.
in keeping with the whole vibe of it all.
I love that answer. Mike, why was the Crooked Man the right villain for this story?
Well, it wasn't that the Crooked Man was right villain. This was the right story. It was self-contained. It didn't call back to a lot of the other stuff.
Sure.
I mean, one of the things we were looking at was, practical considerations for how to do a relatively small Hellboy movie, which is what I'd kind of always wanted. We've seen the whole save the world, I'm the beast of the apocalypse, oh no, all that stuff. We've seen it. We don't need to see it again.
Right.
And to deal with Hellboy as just a person. Which is my favorite Hellboy stories are the ones where his life was kind of uncomplicated and he just stumbled into other people's problems.
Awesome. Now, Jack, this film isn't overly bombastic at all that we've seen in the past. It's like you said, it's a very grounded indie film. What excited you about taking on the role of Hellboy for this iteration of the film?
Exactly that. The close collaboration with Brian and making him a more human Hellboy as far as aesthetically, personality-wise. I kind of mentioned that I'd like to see the reluctance in him, the reluctant hero. He just wants to go to the dance and pick up the girls, but it's gonna be a little tricky for him, So here we go. I've got it. I'll save the day again. I guess I'll save this. This kind of introverted, reluctant hero and vulnerability. Not too much, but just enough.
Just enough.
It's hard for any young man to find his place in the world, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let alone if you've got a tail and sawed off horns, and it's his. He carries a lot of baggage with him and a lot of weight. So I love what Jack brings to it, because I feel like there's a lot of that in him. He's you feel a lot of soul in this guy. And for me, Hellboy has always been a character where, he's characterized as being this wisecracking, sarcastic, and he is those things, but that's covering something underneath, which is like he carries a lot of weight.
Now, Mike, there's been obviously other Hellboy movies in the past, but what surprised you the most about working on this Hellboy movie and just seeing it come to life?
Well, to see how close it was to the comic. There's several shots in there that are panels from the comic, and you know, your fear is always like, especially when you say it's got to be my favorite story,
Right.
that it's going to lose something. But all my favorite moments from the comic are in there. I mean, you're holding your breath as you're watching this. I mean, I actually got to watch, I didn't go on set, but I saw dailies. And you're just going, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Oh my God, is that in there? And is it going to stay in there when they cut the movie? Because there's a particular moment in the church that I loved so much, and I thought, oh God, are they going to add special effects to that, or is it going to cut? You know, it's one of those scenes. It's just a quiet little moment. It could easily get cut, but it stayed all the way through. And it was just, yeah, it just, I not that I didn't like the other movies or love, you know, bits and pieces of the other movies, but it was just, I was so grateful to see somebody that really did want to put, because at some point everybody always says, oh yeah, we're going to put your comic on screen.
Sure.
But this is the time that it happened.
Listen, as a fan of Hellboy's comics, I'm so excited for this movie. I'm excited to see what you guys do with it. Yeah, I mean, it looks fantastic. I can't wait. Thank you guys for stopping by. Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Well, we're actually moving in here now, so I don't know where you guys are going to do.
Well,
the rest
we're going to
of
have to
your
start
stuff
charging a rent. I mean, somebody's going to have to pay for my hotel room. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, you didn't want me to squash?
Squashing's good.